Hello, BookTube. I have some new arrivals for you here, the things that I want to put on your radar just in case they're of interest to you, maybe more interest to you than they are to me. It's one of the things I like to do on this channel is show you new stuff and forthcoming stuff just in case, it takes all types. We have all kinds of intersecting interests here on BookTube, just in case you see something that you really want. It's a beautiful, beautiful day here in Boston. Temperate. The humidity is still high, but the temperature has gone down to such a point that it was yesterday towards sunset was that particular moment. Those of you who live in the Northeast at least will know what I'm talking about. There's that particular moment when you suddenly start looking around at hot weather adaptations to your house. And you, for the first time in what feels like forever, every year it feels like forever, you look at those adaptations and think, might be time to change those. Is it time to get the sweatshirts, sweatpants, and blankets out of their boxes, get them all aired out and laundered? Is it time to do that? Is it time to maybe think about taking the AC units out of the windows? AC units are great, they're life-saving, but they never fit exactly right. So, and when there's cold air outside or chilly air, it's going to come right through those cracks. So you don't want to wait too long for that. Is it time to start thinking about the storm windows? Is it time for all of that stuff? Crossed my mind yesterday towards sunset for the first time in what feels like forever. So it's just a beautiful day. And one of the things that I like most about it is that it allows for longer dog walks with the Bean. The Bean is here. She's not on her window seat. She's right next to me. There's her face. See, there's the little baby's face. It means that when we're out on a walk, and we reach, the fork in the road, and we're thinking, well, should we just keep going because we're enjoying chatting with each other, or should we turn back because we're both dying, because we're both sweating rivers and panting as heavy as could be, feel like we've run a marathon? That point we don't reach in cooler weather, so that we can just go until we feel like coming back, which is really nice. But anyway, I have a stack of new arrivals that I want to show you, and for those of you who are susceptible to clickbait, most of these are already opened, but two of them are not. And we're going to save those for the end. Smash that like button. So what's the first one that we've got? Oh, right, this big thing here. We've got this great big thing here. Let me see if I have a pub sheet for this. I might. I have a whole bunch of pub sheets all mushed together here, including for a bunch of things that I... Oh, okay, no. All right, well, I do. It's in the book. This is edited by Carrie Nelson and Michael Gizzi, and it is Peace and Faith, Christian Churches, and the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict. Beautiful thing. From the University of Massachusetts Press? No, Academic Studies Press. Great big thing. Lots and lots of different pieces about how churches should think about the Arab-Israeli conflict, about what kinds of stances church leaders should take. Naturally, a whole bunch of historical foregrounding here. A really interesting thing. I'm fascinated by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict anyway. I have a whole shelf of books on the subject. This is the only one that I have, the only one that I've read in quite some time that's a specifically religious orientation. I have the pub sheet in here that we can read from. Oh, right. Oh, right. This is right at... there was a Palestinian Lutheran pastor named Mitri Rahib, who he's a fascinating figure, very charismatic, very outspoken, very very good, entertaining writer. There's a point here where the book quotes from his book, "I am a Palestinian Christian," and I noted it because it's. Let's see here. He lays out his hermeneutical principles for reading the Bible, both in the concept of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and also with an eye to ecumenical dialogue between Christians and Christian-Jewish dialogue. Principle number 1, the Bible is God's word in human words. The writing of the Old and New Testament are the records and written accounts of various experiences human beings have had with the one God. They are nothing but testimonies of faith. Factually false. Principle number 2, Holy Scripture did not fall from heaven and is not timeless. It is written in history, it is history, and it makes history. Every writing in the Bible originated in a specific context and relates to a context that must always be taken into consideration. This is necessary for us for the sake of the context itself as well as for its content, for there is no such thing as a text without a context. Typological and allegorical interpretations are neither relevant nor helpful in exegesis. Factually false. Principle number 3. The Bible is always contemporary. It is a living thing and cannot be put up in a jar. God's Spirit brings Scripture home to us. God brings it close. But this Spirit of God does not yield to our whim. It is bound to Scripture, and only faith makes it possible. No interpretation that excludes faith is possible. One can interpret Scripture correctly One can interpret Scripture correctly in any given context only when one's conscience is illuminated by faith and one's reason is permeated by love. Not only factually wrong, that you have to be a believing Christian to examine the Bible. Not only factually wrong, but absurd, laughably absurd. And number 4, the Bible is a great whole. The Old and New Testaments form a unity. For us Christians, the Old Testament without the New Testament is not enough. But the New Testament without the Old Testament will either be misunderstood or not understood at all. Factually wrong. The Bible is a unity. The Bible contradicts itself more than any book in the world. So fun stuff, and it makes me long for the days of arguing with this particular writer. But what have we got here? So this comes out in mid-October, and is the first collection to bring together writers from different faith communities to discuss boycott, divestment, and sanctions, impact on one of the most fractious topics addressed in Christian denominations, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In doing so, it builds on interfaith projects underway for decades. Theology and politics intermingle in debates taking place in local churches, Christian NGOs, national church meetings that define official policy. The debate revives and reframes the most basic values of Christianity and the questions church members seek to resolve. How do Christians today hew to the principles Jesus articulated? How can justice be pursued in the context of competing national narratives and historical understandings? What bearing do or should centuries of Christian violence against Jews and Muslims have on contemporary theology and ethics, etc.? I've never really understood. The book comes with a huge amount of blurbs, and it'll be really interesting to me to read. I've never really understood myself the resistance to the BDS movement. I've never really understood that. The BDS movement is merely saying if you disagree with the politics of a government, it doesn't have to be the Israeli government. It could be the government of South Africa. The BDS movement is saying if you disagree with the policies of the government, don't do business with that government. Don't help to support the government that enacts those policies. I've never understood people. There are quite a few very loud voices in America, for instance, who say that the BDS movement is flagrantly anti-Semitic. I don't see that. I don't think that makes any sense at all. But this is going to have a lot to do with that. So I don't know where I'm going to put all these things, mainly because the spot where I would ordinarily put them is currently occupied by the bean. She is sleeping next to me on the pillow that I usually use to put things. And she will not move. I tried gently to budge her, and she absolutely refuses. So I have to find another place for these. So that's the first one. Then this next one is historical fiction. This is by Stephen Sprott, and it is called Animal Wrongs, a somewhat true historical novel. Let's see what we've got here. This comes out in late October. It's from 3 Rooms Press. That's small, so if you want this, you'll probably need to order it from your bookstore. They probably won't have it on the shelf. And it is great for fans of Edward Carey, Amor Towles, and Umberto Eco. I wouldn't think you could be great for all 3 of those without herniating yourself. But what have we got here? Historical fiction has never been more uproarious than as master storyteller Stephen Sprott unleashes this wild tale of opposing attorneys battling to defend or prosecute accused animals, including a rat and a pig, facing penalties of being hanged or burned alive at the stake. Think Willard meets Name of the Rose. Based on actual court records, Sprott is not based on actual court records. He's based on something his mommy and daddy did 9 months before he was born. But I know what you mean. Sprott captures the wit and bluster of the era. We haven't been told an era yet. Where courtrooms were packed with cheering, heckling spectators in ever more opaque, convoluted, and dilatory trials. By the end of this novel, the author uses his critically acclaimed storytelling skills to explore still relevant theories on legal precedent, the church versus the state, mankind's place in nature, and animal rights. Okay, great. So this is a study of, I don't know, does this give me a time frame? The pub sheet seems to think that I have one, but I don't. 1508 is when the book starts. And the premise is absolutely true. And we do have huge, embarrassingly large numbers of legal records, courtroom records, of animals being put on trial. So a pig gores to death its master. The pig is put on trial for murder, given a lawyer, given a prosecution. And that might all seem really funny, but the animals don't have any idea what's going on. And they are tortured to death if they're found guilty. And they're always found guilty. They're tortured to death, hanged, burned at the stake, stoned to death, drowned. That part, of course, isn't quite as funny. But anyway, there we go. Animal wrongs. Probably we'll try to take a humorous look. This next one, very much looking forward to this for very local boy reasons. This is by Elizabeth Emerson, and it is called Letters from Red Farm. The untold story of the friendship between Helen Keller and journalist Joseph Edgar Chamberlain. Ed Chamberlain was a writer of a column called Listener. He was a famous reporter and critic, reviewer. He could make or break a book, make or break a show in Boston for the dear old Boston Evening Transcript. He was a weird figure, a strange, wonderful, wonderful figure. That whenever he ambles across the memoirs of someone from this time period, 100 years ago, the pages just glow. He never made an indifferent impression. It was always positive. It was always well. Anyway, let's read about this book. This comes out already. This came out on September 24th, and this is from the University of Massachusetts Press. So that is a relatively small academic press. This might not be in your bookstore, but if you're interested in Helen Keller, for instance, this illuminates in great length a chapter of her life that's glossed over pretty quickly in big biographies. In 1888, young Helen Keller traveled to Boston with her teacher, Annie Sullivan, where they met a man who would change their life, Boston Transcript columnist and editor Joseph Edgar Chamberlain. Throughout her childhood and young adult years, Keller spent weekends and holidays at Red Farm, the Chamberlains' home in Wrentham, Massachusetts, a bustling environment where avant-garde writers, intellectuals, and social reformers of the day congregated. Keller eventually called Red Farm home for a year when she was 16. Informed by previously unpublished letters and extensive research, Letters from Red Farm explores for the first time Keller's deep and enduring friendship with the man who became her literary mentor and friend for over 40 years. Written by Chamberlain's great-great-granddaughter, this engaging story imparts new insight into Helen Keller's life and personality, introduces the irresistible Chamberlain to a modern public, and follows Keller's burgeoning interest in social activism as she took up the causes of disability rights, women's issues, and pacifism. And the place in Wrentham it still exists. It's still there. You can go and see it. It's lovely. Absolutely lovely. And it's right across, right up a kind of berm from a lake, a very picturesque lake. And guests of all kinds, writers, Ed Chamberlain's fellow hacks at the Boston Evening Transcript and at other newspapers. He and his wife were famous for their hospitality. And the hospitality wasn't just physical, although the meals were great. There was an unending amount of comfort in that old home. But also in terms of their intellectual generosity, because guests would there would be elaborate evenings. It's hard even to describe what the evenings at Red Farm were like. They weren't just recitals. Those of you who know your Jane Austen, for instance, or your P.G. Wodehouse will know that in the Victorian and especially the Edwardian era, the house recital was a big deal, where guests would go to a big dinner, and then when that was over, the most talented young miss in the family would give a few pieces on the piano or something like that. It was excruciating, usually excruciating. But even when it wasn't excruciating, it was fairly canned. And at Red Farm, it wasn't just that. Guests were encouraged to read from works in progress. They were encouraged to improvise. There were theatricals. And these were either conducted out of doors. There was a beautiful, beautiful area right under the trees in the shade on beautiful days like today. Or inside, there was a massive stone-bordered fireplace that just filled the room with warmth and bright light. And guests, when they would go out to Wrentham, which is just a quick train ride from Boston, they were told, if you want, there's plenty of farm work to be done. Guests were encouraged to do farm work. They weren't made to. They didn't have to. They could sit and read. But if they wanted to, there was plenty of stuff for them to do, and then they would feel like they'd earned the massive meal and the fresh water and the wonderful entertainments later in the day. It was a weird experience. I'm hoping that it is captured really well in this book. In addition to the Helen Keller parts, I'm hoping it's captured really well. Actually, now that I've got this in my hand, do we have any photographs? There are a couple of period photographs. Oh, here we go. Look at that. It pretty much describes what I'm talking about. Absolutely wonderful place. There's Ed Chamberlain later in life. Not quite the wild-haired boy who liked to set things on fire, metaphorically speaking, when he was younger. It'd be really nice to have a biography of the Boston Evening Transcript. A big book on the Boston Evening Transcript and all the utterly remarkable people that filed in and out of its doors for decades. It'd be great to have a biography of Chamberlain. That would be fantastic. It'd be great, actually, even. Where's the last big 900-page biography of Helen Keller? It'd be nice to have work on all of this, but I will definitely take this book. God bless the University of Massachusetts Press for putting it out. So that is out already in your bookstores. We're going to put this away from the bean. Okay, all right. These next 4 books could be interesting. They are on interesting subjects. I'm going to get a rant out of the way at first, just for one of them. They all share one factor in common. You're going to notice it before you notice anything else. It's extremely infuriating. It's deeply insulting. I'm hoping that the publisher is Rowman and Littlefield. I'm hoping that someone who connected with them is watching this video and will take my advice to heart. And the thing that is on the cover of all of these books is this. Review copy, not for resale, non-returnable. This is, first of all, it's a gigantic sticker. It's on the front of the book instead of the back, and it's not removable, even by any efforts that I know of. I've even used that stuff Goo Gone to get rid of the residue of these things. They were made to be permanently affixed to the book. And they won't be on the copy that you get in your bookstores. They're on the cover of this book in order to scream at the potential editor or reviewer, you are a thief, I really hate you. That's what this sticker is screaming. I am both a reviewer and a book section editor. And I have to say to anybody who's from Rowan and Littlefield who's watching, the reaction of every reviewer and especially book section editor who gets a book that has a warning like this plastered right on it that can't be removed is going to be either frustration or outright hostility. And as any of you authors out there can attest, the number one thing you want when you have a book is exposure. The writing of the book might seem like the biggest hill in the world, but it's not. It's getting anybody to notice that you've written a book amidst the thousands of other books that come out that same day. That is the struggle. The last thing in the world, if you are a publisher, that you want to do is have your book immediately strike an editor or reviewer the wrong way. That's the last thing on earth that you want to do. And this makes it happen. That is absolutely obnoxious. So if someone from Rowan and Littlefield is watching, I want to say to you, stop doing this. Stop doing this right away. Stop today. Watch this video, then get on the phone and call the people at your warehouse and make sure this doesn't happen ever again. Stop doing this. I can personally attest to the fact, I can personally tell you, there are editors out there who see these books and immediately discard them no matter how interested they are in the subject. Because you had the nerve to do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. That is aimed only at 2 people, the editor or the reviewer. Well, the editor might want to consider your book, but he's not going to want you yelling at him. And that editor, a lot of editors in small-town newspapers, for instance, might use a free copy of the book as part of offsetting the fact that they can't really pay their reviewers all that much. No reviewer is going to want to take a book that's yelling at them not to be a thief. That's a part of the ecology here, and it's aimed at such a small number of people. The people who can do you good. Don't do this. But now that we've got that rant out of we're going to pretend we don't see it on the other books, and we're just going to read about this. This is 13 Cracks, I think. I have to read the pub sheet in order to know what the title is, because the sticker is over the title. 13 Cracks, Repairing American Democracy After Trump. This is by Alan Lichtman. America's founders feared a president like Donald Trump. Through the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they erected a fortified but constrained government to secure the benchmarks of our democracy and established guardrails designed to protect it. But Trump pushed almost every one of the framers' safeguards to its limit. Most held, but some broke under the weight of presidential abuses even the framers did not foresee. Certainly did not foresee that an entire major political party would want to destroy those safeguards. And that has happened. It is now almost impossible. It will be, in 2022, it will be a landslide for Republicans, and it won't have anything to do with the normal pattern of events. Normally, the party that's in power loses a little bit of that power in midterm elections. That won't be the case here. The Democrats will actually do better than the Republicans, but the Republicans haven't bothered stumping or trying their ideas with the electorate or anything like that. Instead, they've been carefully working to get their people at key choke points as certifiers of votes in local, state, and municipal voting boards. Local administration officials that no one had at the party level had ever thought of before. Instead, the Republican Party in the last year has swung an enormous amount of effort behind making sure that their people are in those positions. And though they aren't just their people, they're January 6th partisans. They're people who wanted to overthrow the government on January 6th. They've just now determined to do it at a slower rate. No Republican will lose in 2022, and no Republican will ever lose again on a national level, and it won't have anything to do with popular turnout. It will be because they have taken control of the minor offices of government that the framers put in place thinking no one would ever do that. So who is the author here? Distinguished professor of history at American University, and the author of many acclaimed books on U.S. political history. Including FDR and the Jews, which he wrote with Richard Brightman. A lot of you will know that book. That book was excellent. FDR and the Jews was excellent. So he co-wrote that. And he lives in Bethesda, Maryland, which I know quite well. Okay, fantastic. So this comes out in, did I say? This comes out in early November. 13 Cracks comes out in early November. You don't have to worry about this. That huge warning not to be a thief and a loser. It's just the people that Rowan and Littlefield wants to help them that need to worry about being called thieves and losers. So that's number one. You're going to have to get used to that sticker because it's on the next few books. They just they might be of interest to you, so I can't not show them to you. This next one is Wind, Fire, and Ice. It has a long subtitle that I can't read. It's by Robert Boonez, but I have no idea what the subtitle is. Let's go to the pub sheet to find out what the subtitle is. I never will know either because that sticker is not removable. This comes out in October. No idea. Now is October. No specific date is given. And the subtitle is The Perils of a Coast Guard Icebreaker in Antarctica. And I assume the cover would show us that vessel. But yeah, the cover does show us that vessel. You will see it in your bookstores. I can't see it. But you'll be able to. Between 1955 and 1987, the United States Coast Guard cutter Glacier was the largest and most powerful icebreaker in the free world. Consequently, it was often given the most difficult and dangerous Antarctic missions. This is the dramatic first-person account of its most legendary voyage. It's the story of a physician fresh out of internship who naively assumes he is going to have an easy assignment and explore exotic ports. Instead, he experiences the adventures and adversities beyond his imagination, as well as jarring conflicts with an obsessed captain. Fantastic. Sounds fantastic. You won't have to worry about this. And of course, in very little time, this will not only sound fantastic, it will actually be fantastical. In very little time, there won't be any ice in the Antarctic. So books like this will immediately date themselves. Then this next one is by Ryan, oh my God, Utawelijan? It's called Killing John Wayne, The Making of the Conqueror. And you can see John Wayne's face, so this sticker isn't really fatal. But the back says, did John Wayne die from being a heavy smoker or exposure to nuclear weapons testing or some combination of both? And there are a whole bunch of PIs looking at a mushroom cloud. I can answer that question. He died because he never stopped smoking. When he was awake, he never stopped smoking. And that's what killed him, as it kills everybody for whom that can be said. There's no sense in adding in a mushroom cloud. That's what killed him. But anyway, this comes out in October too. No specific date here. And I took a glance at this pub sheet ahead of time. Those of you who are film buffs are really going to want to think about this book. I don't know how well established Rowman and Littlefield is in bookstores. So I don't know if you're going to see this in your bookstore, but you at least will be aware of it. You can order it from them or get your library to order a copy. Behold the history of a film so scandalous, so outrageous, so explosive, it disappeared from print for over a quarter of a century. A film so dangerous, half its cast and crew met their demise, bringing eccentric billionaire Howard Hughes' final cinematic vision to life. Starring all-American legend John Wayne in full Fu Manchu makeup as Mongol madman Genghis Khan. Featuring sultry seductress Susan Hayward as his lover. This is the true story of The Conqueror, made in 1956, comma, the worst movie ever made. Filmed during the dark underbelly of the 1950s, the Cold War, when nuclear testing in desolate southwestern landscapes was must for survival, the very same landscapes where exotic stories set in faraway lands could be made. Just 153 miles from St. George, Utah, set from, okay, this is a little poorly punctuated, a little poorly written. The set of the movie was in St. George, Utah. Nuclear bombs were detonated regularly at Yucca Flat and Frenchman Flat in Nevada, providing a bizarre and possibly deadly background to an already surreal moment in cinematic history. This book tells the full story of the making of The Conqueror, its ignominious aftermath, and the radiation-induced cancer that may have killed John Wayne and many others. And the author, did I kill your name, Ryan? I think I did. Ryan Unterwelligen? He attended Lethbridge College in Alberta. I don't know that that's any excuse for having that kind of a last name. And earned a degree in broadcast journalism, learning to work in radio, anchoring, reporting, and media coordinating for the prestigious Vancouver International Film Festival. He would like to express his sympathy to anyone who has lost a loved one that worked on The Conqueror. Good Lord. Okay, well, I read that originally when I was fuming about these stickers, and it fascinated me. So I figured it would fascinate some of you. That's the main reason I do this, is that, I want you to know what's coming out, just in case you want to buy it. Of course, that would be the extravagant case. This is $30 sometime in October. Or whether or not you want your library to become aware of it. You'll know better than that than I will in a lot of cases. Sometimes I'll see a book and know immediately which of you I should send it to. But otherwise, I want you to know about it. So Killing John Wayne, The Making of the Conqueror, the worst movie ever, is a new book from Rowman and Littlefield. And then we have the last one. And it's got a sticker. The world is ending outside the window. We'll see if you can hear me. This is Globe Pequot Press, part of Rowman and Littlefield, I believe. This is by Edward Moser, and it is The Lost History of the Capitol, the hidden and tumultuous saga of Congress and the Capitol building. Again, with that obnoxious sticker, and here you have a couple of signature events. You are American, you immediately think violence at the Capitol, and you think of only one thing, the armed insurrection incited by President Donald Trump in order to sack the Capitol on January 6th, execute his vice president and any members of the Democratic House of Representatives that his mob could find, and install himself as an unelected leader, presumably forever, since no election can go wrong. No election can fail to elect him. You might be thinking of that, but this author's, the implication I'm guessing here is that the author is making is entirely correct, which is that the Capitol has been a scene of violence many times. Never anything like that. Never anything anywhere near that bad. Fundamentally bad. Violence designed to take over the country. But still bad. A lot of incidents that a lot of people don't know. The Capitol has a fascinating history. So what have we got here? This comes out also in October. Again, no specific date. Let's see here. It's an account of the many bizarre, tragic, and violent episodes that have occurred in and around the Capitol building, from the founding of the federal capital city in 1790 up to contemporary times, including the events of January 6, 2021. In this 230-year span, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the neighborhoods nearby have witnessed dozens of high-profile scandals, trials, riots, bombings, and personal assaults, along with some heartwarming events as well. It is a popular work about the U.S. Capitol building and its environs. And the author is a historian, a tour guide, and an author, and a former speechwriter for George H.W. Bush, and a former editor of Time Life Books. And he also wrote for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. So lots and lots of writing experience. So this could be really interesting. I have a whole shelf of books devoted to Washington and Capitol history. I used to live in Washington for a time, and I have a whole shelf devoted to that. I think it's absolutely fascinating. So we'll see. We'll see what this is like. I'm sure that somewhere out there, theoretically, there are specific Capitol dates here. I mean, not Capitol dates. There are specific October dates. But I'm figuring for reviewing purposes, that now that I'm in October, these things are fair game. If they're not telling me what the date is, then I think they're fair game for me to start reading them and with an aim towards reviewing them. Then we have an item. It's pre-opened, but it's still, oh god, it's still. I'm glad that those books fell because you wouldn't have been able to hear me. But it's the weekend. The noise in this neighborhood is especially fracas. But this next one it was open from its package, but not from its individual wrapping. So I actually don't know what this is. We'll just see what this is. Oh, baby. Hi, baby. The bean is paying special attention. Oh, no, she's not. She's gone back to sleeping. She was paying special attention. Sorry, she's not on her window, so you're not going to see her doing her yoga. Somebody has wrapped this individually. That's interesting. Why would we do that? Can we be gentle about this? I don't want to create confetti. Let's be gentle about this. Interesting. Plus, some of this paper, or a good deal of it, might be salvageable. Yeah, a lot of this paper will be salvageable. It's perfectly good. I will sort that out later. It's good. It's good paper for keeping your journal on. You know. What have we got here? Oh, you're kidding me. Oh, oh no! Oh no! Okay, all right. I don't have a pub sheet for this thing. But I know what this is anyway. This is the Gloucester Notebook by the great American poet T.S. Eliot. This has a foreword by Robert McCrum. Don't know if you can hear me. I have no idea if you can hear me. I don't know what that is. It's not a car or a truck. I don't know what it was. A tank, maybe, of some kind. The rebels did break through just the one town over, so that might account for some of this. At least there haven't been missiles or explosions. Or executions. Just the other day, there was a guy with a leaf blower who had to be executed in order to get his hand off the switch. He was pointing it at the concrete. It had been blowing at ear-numbing volume for roughly 10 hours. His neighbors had pleaded with him to stop. His family had come out, his little children, holding onto his knees, begging him, please stop using your gas-powered leaf blower. But of course, men in that position, their eyes are rolled back in their head, there's drool coming down the mouth, they're gone. They're gone. And they're a real danger, too. They're zombies, so they could bite someone and turn them into a zombie. So routinely, the police have to just shoot them. And you shoot them many, many times in the head, but you still need the jaws of life to pry their thumb off the trigger of the gas-powered leaf blower. That's how bad it is. Things seem to have quieted down. So this is the Gloucester Notebook of T.S. Eliot, with a foreword by Robert McCrum. And this isn't just the Gloucester Notebook. This is a facsimile edition. So you get the pages written by Eliot and then a transcription on the side. Are there any notes? No, there is an introduction. There's an introduction with sepia photographs. But no critical apparatus at all. Just the Gloucester Notebook and its transcription. That's interesting. Robert McCrum in his foreword will probably say why. When T.S. Eliot was a young man, he bought a leather notebook for writing, for jotting down things in. He jotted down if poems came to him. He jotted them down. A couple of his famous poems have their original manuscripts in this notebook. Thoughts, daily expenditures, that sort of thing. Just an ordinary notebook that he carried everywhere with him. And then he lost it. He lost track of that notebook. It went missing. When late in his life, he used to reflect that he had no idea what had happened to it. Little known to him, someone had stolen it from him. Effectively, if you have it without the author's permission, you have stolen it, whether you crept into his bedroom or not. The first thing you should do is be to offer it back to the author, and no one did that. Instead, the New York Public Library bought it. And this is, I believe, the first facsimile transcription of the Gloucester Notebook. And it makes me wonder. I mean, I'm sure it'll be fascinating, but it makes me wonder what you think about things like this. Not so much posthumous stuff, as stuff that the author clearly didn't want to publish. Should we see these things? T.S. Eliot is an unquestionably major, important poet, American literary figure. Should we see this? Should this be available, even though he didn't want it to be? Even though somebody had to engage in subterfuge, and the public library, also had to engage in subterfuge in order to acquire it? I mean, should I read this? And if I review it, should I take it to task? Should I tongue lash it for even existing? I keep thinking back to, I forget who it was, an academic press published an early student paper by John Rawls, the legal and moral philosopher John Rawls, It was a student paper that Rawls disavowed. He was ashamed of it. Somebody else had a copy. He most certainly did not want it published. They published it anyway. And my review was extremely brutal with them of that book. If I remember, I will leave a link to it down below. It was extremely brutal with the press that decided to do this, with the literary estate that decided to do this. This isn't quite the same thing. It's possible that T.S. Eliot, if he'd been approached late in life, might have said, if someone had said, we found your Gloucester notebook and we'd really like to print it, it's possible he would have said yes. I doubt it. I doubt it very much, but it's possible. So is this a different case? This is referring to Gloucester, not in England, but in America. The Eliot family used to summer at the place in Gloucester. That is it on the cover. Not the island, but I mean this landscape is it on the cover. It's a really, really nice place. It still exists. It's, I believe, a writer's retreat now. But Eliot wrote quite a bit there, and a lot of interesting stuff. I've only read biographers' bits and pieces of the Gloucester Notebook. I've never actually held it in my hand or seen anything like the unedited contents. That'll be fascinating. I just don't know how I'll feel when I'm reading it. How would you feel? I mean, should we care about such things after so much time? Is it right to be reading this when Eliot didn't agree for you to be reading it? I don't know. I think it's fascinating either way that a publisher would do that. And then we'll finish up here with a kid's book. Only My Dog Knows I Pick My Nose by Lauren Tarshies with illustrations by Lisa Bronson-Metzoff. Only my dog knows that I pick my nose. You might think that. You're not probably as subtle as you think. The mischievous story of the inner world of a child that will have little ones and caregivers everywhere laughing in recognition. To the outside world, it might look like you do everything right. Eat your broccoli, share your toys, behave in the bath. But what about the moments when no one is looking? Your messier, mushier self is revealed. The only one who knows is the loyal dog friend who sees it all and still loves you just the way you are. That's fantastic. And this comes out in the 19th, October 19th. Only my dog knows I pick my nose. The only caution that I would give here, let's give you a bit of the artwork here. There you go. The only caution that I would make about this book for you parents out there. How loud can I burp? Yes, you don't want to show that to the grandma. The only caution that I would give you on October 19th when this book is available, if you're a parent or you're giving a present, that was a missile, but it whisked right by the house. It's headed for the rebels. The only advice that I can give about this book, if you are planning on giving it to someone, is be very careful that you know the ground. It seems like a charming, wonderful book, but it presumes the presence of a dog. And I always worry when I'm giving a kid's book to anybody, to any young kid, I always worry about setting off the endless demands to get a dog in the part of a small kid who can't take care of a dog and so shouldn't have one. I always worry about that when a book is about a beloved dog, or, isn't it fun to have a dog, or boy, oh boy, I wish I had a dog and now I do because one showed up in the backyard, or anything like that. This book will do the same thing. It will create, maybe in some children, the idea, wouldn't it be great if I had a dog? I really want a dog. And you don't want to start that conversation. If you can avoid it, you don't want to start that conversation. This book might. That's the only caution that I would issue about getting it. It looks charming. Just that. And there you go. That was a long new arrivals thing here. And because the bean is under my left arm, I'm once again hampered by how to do this. So we have Only My Dog Knows I Pick My Nose. We have The Gloucester Notebook by T.S. Eliot in a facsimile edition. We have The Lost History of the Capitol. We have Killing John Wayne, The Making of the Conqueror. We have Wind, Fire, and Ice. Naive young man joins the Coast Guard and goes to Antarctica. We have 13 Cracks, about the cracks in American institutional democracy that were put in place by Donald Trump. We have Letters from Red Farm by Elizabeth Emerson, about a key relationship in Helen Keller's life that is not as studied as it perhaps should be. We have Animal Wrongs, a historical novel set in the Middle Ages when animals were routinely put on trial for human crimes. And we have Peace and Faith, a big book anthology of pieces about the Christian response to the to the Israeli Palestine conflict. What does your faith call you to do or not do? Oh, right, but we also have this is going to be a long video then, because we also have the two books that we have to open. So let's go through these quickly so that we don't have a 2-hour video here. I completely forgot about them. And the first one is Fighting Me. A finished copy of some kind. What have we got here? What have we got here? Oh, this is lovely. What the? Is this a gift from one of you? Oh, it is. This is a gift from one of you. Oh, how wonderful. This is the Ring of the Nibelung. Look at that, a hand reaching for the ring. This is the Ring of the Nibelung from Dark Horse Comics, drawn by the great P. Craig Russell. Incredible. I had one of these issues once, years ago, because I'm a huge fan of P. Craig Russell. Just a huge fan. But I've never read the whole thing. Wow. Oh, wow. Fantastic. Incredible. What an amazing gift. Thank you so much. Whoever sent this. I'll have to scour the package, see if I can find out who did this. This is just beautiful. Certainly better than my boring old Penguin edition. Oh, wow. All right, well, it's all downhill from there. That's incredible. I haven't read all of this. And it's one of my favorite artists. Fantastic. And then we'll do this last one, and then we'll be done. And this one is from Yale, so it's not from one of you. Oh, great. Fantastic. Came out in late September. It's by an author with the unfortunate name of Clive Aslet. And it's called The Story of the Country House, which you all know I love. I have a huge sweet spot for English country houses. A vivid account of the British country house. Clive Aslet reveals the captivating stories behind individual houses, their architects, and occupants, and paints a picture of the wider context in which the country house flourished and fell into decline before enjoying a renaissance in the 21st century. Fantastic. Fantastic. I didn't know this was coming, but I absolutely love the subject. So this is already out in your bookstores from Yale. Yale may be in your bookstore, but if you're interested and you want a neat narrative history of the country house, there are plenty of them. I have a whole shelf worth. I have a shelf worth of books. I really should put them all together. Now that I know that this should be the impetus to put them all together. But anyway, I'm going to add these to the pile. That was our new arrivals video for today. Good Lord, was it long. I'm going to wrap this up. Hope there was something here that interested you. And I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.